The Comic Book Bullies with Nerd is the New Bully. I'm your host, Leroy, with my co-host.
This is Eli.
Yep, and today it is a day that we have been dreading. We've been hoping it wasn't anything we were going to hear. We were hoping we were going to make it out of 18 without hearing this news, but it looked like it finally happened. We just want to say rest in peace to Stan Lee. So,
Yes,
so
sad day for nerds everywhere.
exactly. And the thing is, like I said, normally when we do a podcast and there's like a death of a celebrity and stuff like that, we normally just do it and just move on to the rest of the podcast. We're gonna do something different this time. This is Stan Lee. This isn't just anybody, and rest in peace to everybody that we've talked about before. But this is Stan Lee. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna do a tribute episode to Stan Lee because Stan Lee deserves it.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, with the rise in nerd culture, everybody doing nerd podcasts are probably would not be doing it with if it wasn't for Stan Lee.
I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't be reading comics without Stan Lee.
Probably.
So,
I mean, his what he's done has touched so many parts of our lives that it's crazy.
right,
When,
and touching more lives. Like I said, he's gotten to the point now that we're probably talking maybe 100 years down the road from today. They'll still be mentioning his name.
yeah,
I mean, just like Tolkien.
yeah. I mean, he's created a world and characters that will basically go on to live forever. I mean, and especially now we have the Marvel Studios, Marvel movies being made and introducing these characters to a whole new generation of fans. So I mean, yeah, he will live on in the hearts of us all.
Yeah. And plus, we owe it to ourselves also because we need to talk about Stan Lee's life and what he contributed to comics, to nerd culture, to movies, to pop culture, to fiction.
Hmm.
All we need to discuss this stuff because I think we're at a point now that a lot of kids are just jumping into it. And these kids don't read comics nowadays.
Yeah,
And most of Stan Lee's, in his heyday, the stuff that where he was really breaking ground was like back in the 60s and 70s, stuff like that. So they're not going back and read that stuff either. So they only know Stan Lee from one thing. They only know him from cameos.
pretty much. Yeah,
And to them, he's the cameo guy. That's it. I even saw a Facebook post earlier today that they said that a mom told her kid, Stan Lee passed away today, and the kid asked, "Are they gonna make any more Marvel movies?" Like, yeah, that's not gonna stop making Marvel movies because of Stan Lee. But at the same time, that's what he's known for. And the funny thing is, they always have these like highest grossing actors of all time and stuff like that, and they got these numbers. Like it used to be like Samuel Jackson, and then when Force Awakens came out, Harrison Ford jumped over him. But if you really look at the numbers, it's really Stan Lee
I guess. Yeah,
because he's been in all of these movies. I mean, because the MCU is the highest grossing franchise in U.S. history, like by far, and it's not stopping. You know, of
yeah,
course,
and he was doing cameos even before the MCU. You know,
exactly. And they were hits. So it got to
yeah,
the point, and that's what people know him for. Like, if they see Stan Lee in a movie, then it's going to be a hit.
pretty much.
Everybody was like, okay, where's the cameo? They see the cameo, everybody's clapping, everybody's happy and stuff, and it goes on from there. So, yeah, he's the cameo guy, but I mean, he does a lot more. Well, he did a lot more than just made cameos, and that's what we're here to talk about. You know.
Yeah.
Trying to pull up some numbers right now. Okay, so like I said, let's first talk about Stan Lee. We're gonna start from the beginning. Like I said, his name is a pen name. Like most authors do that. They don't use their real name. Use a pen name. His real name is Stanley Martin Lieber.
Hmm.
Like I said, we looked at it. He was born in 1922. He started working for Timely Comics. Timely Comics was eventually turned into Marvel. He started there, I think, when he was 18 or
Yeah, he
something.
was still in high school. Yeah.
Still in high school when he started there. Now, a lot of times people are listing, and we're going to go down a list of characters that Stan Lee helped create or put his name and contribution on. One of the characters he didn't have a hand in creating is Captain America.
Yeah, that
So
was Kirby.
that was Kirby and that was Joe Simon. However, Captain America Comics #3 was his first writing assignment. That was the first time he got writing credit.
Oh, okay.
So that was then, and he wrote like it. And it wasn't, he didn't write the entire story because back then when you bought comics, they were like 50 pages, stuff like that, and then each person contributed whatever to it. So he contributed, and his page was like 11 pages, something like that. I can't remember. It was something to do with Nazis or something. You know, the same old. You know, Captain America. So that's where he started, and then he went on from there. But here's the interesting thing about comics. Like I said, he started writing back in the 40s during World War II, and it's cool. But after World War II, and then the government started cracking down on the violence and sex in comics, superhero comics all of a sudden died. You couldn't sell superhero comics. Only 3 superhero comics still sold from the 40s to like the 60s or 70s or to today, and that was Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. That's why they're called the Trinity, because if it wasn't them, they died. Flash, canceled. Green Lantern, canceled. They was all done. When they came back, they were something else. But the thing is, what Stan Lee did, what Timely Comics were doing at the time, they weren't doing, like I said, they kept going. They didn't close the doors or anything like that, but they weren't making superhero comics. They were making monster comics. They were making romance comics for some reason, if it makes any sense. And they were actually like some of the most popular ones back then. Jack Kirby cranked out romance comics left and right back then. And westerns. Westerns were super popular. You had the Rawhide Kid. You had the Two Gun Kid. Both of them eventually became Avengers.
The original Ghost Rider.
The original Ghost Rider. He was a Western whatever, you know. Yeah, so that's what they did. But the thing is, and Stan Lee got sick of that shit. He got sick of writing romance and monster comics, stuff like that. So he was ready to quit.
Yeah.
But the thing is, his wife told him, like, if you're going to quit, at least write the comics you want to quit. Because he got tired of writing this drivel. Because that's the thing. Comics back then were considered for kids. I mean, you can say that now. But they were really considered for kids. They were considered for kids. They were considered throwaway. They weren't considered real, you know, literature. They were just junk. You just crank out and just move on. So his wife told him that if you're going to get out of writing comics and you're tired of doing it, write the story that you want to write. You know, if you're going to get out of it anyway, what they're going to do, fire you? So,
and his boss had given him an assignment. So he wanted a team of superheroes.
And because Stan, the Justice League were popular, said, give me a Justice League.
Since Justice League was selling, they said we need a team of superheroes. And Stan didn't want to do it. He's like, I don't want to write superheroes.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what he said. So.
Yeah.
So he said, So he said, give me a Justice League book. That's what the editor said. Give me a Justice League book. And they said, like, okay, I'll give you a team of superheroes. And he made Fantastic Four #1.
Yep.
And the thing was, the Fantastic Four #1 changed the comic industry altogether. Because like I said, it was him and Jack Kirby. Those two guys changed comics overnight. One thing, because they actually didn't even draw it as a superhero comic. The book was actually disguised as a monster comic.
Yeah.
Because on the cover, if you look at the cover of Fantastic Four #1, none of them had superhero costumes. They were in regular ass clothes fighting, and they're the small part of it. The thing is, the biggest part of it was like some kind of huge monster, Green Kraken or some shit like that, you know. So he was the biggest focus of it. So they were like, if you look at the book, you think it's a monster book. You don't think
and it followed those monster tropes of the time of, you know, like the Godzilla, you know, mythology of the atomic age, the fear of the nuclear weapons, and the space race. That at the time that was popular in science fiction and horror. Monsters being created by atomic bombs, you know, mutating big giant insects and Godzilla and shit like that, or space aliens.
And that's actually what happened in the comic in Fantastic Four. Reed Richards was trying to beat everybody in the space race.
Yeah.
Because this is before everybody went to the moon. So he jumped in the rocket, and the Fantastic Four were the first ones to go into space. They get hit by radiation, bam, they got powers.
Yeah.
So the same monster trope we've always seen before. And matter of fact, that's why the Thing is even on the group. And that's why he's the biggest on the cover, because, okay, if the superhero shit don't sell, at least we got a big orange monster on there. Monsters sell, so there you go.
Yeah.
And so, which actually brings me to another point, another reason why Stan Lee changed the name. Now, Stan Lee said he changed his name because he said he didn't want to be associated with comics, and he decided to do something else. You know, they would think it's something else. Eli, I always think it was something more than that. It was that, but I think it was something else. I think it's because, and it wasn't just him, it was other writers at the time. He was trying to hide the fact he was a Jew.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Could have been. And it wasn't just him. It was also Jacob Kurtzberg, a.k.a. Jack Kirby, and other guys at the time also. They didn't want to know. That's why they were Jewish, but a lot of times in the book, there were no Jewish characters in the book, even though that was their religion. There was only one Jewish character at the time, and that was the Thing.
That's right.
But it was funny about that because the Thing is actually, and I actually did some like reading on Wikipedia, stuff like that. The Thing is based off like a Jewish like rock monster. They call him the Golem.
Gollum, yeah.
Yeah, so it's all based, and these guys were always into religion and mythology, stuff like that. So they snuck this stuff in the books, even like back then in the '60s. They were trying to do something more than what they're doing. But the reason why Fantastic Four has separated themselves from every other comic, not only did they fight monsters and do wild shit like that, but they all had different personalities.
Yeah, they didn't get along.
They didn't get along. They argued all the time. They fought all the time. They were like a real family. They had money issues. They got, in like the first run, they got kicked out of the Baxter building. They had to find a way to, sell patents. They didn't deal with that stuff in other comics. They didn't care what the regular people were doing with people with regular problems.
Yeah.
And on, let's say, I hate to knock on DC, but on the DC side of it, because they were still cranking out superheroes, every superhero felt cookie cutter. They all had the exact same personalities. Like if you put the letterbox on this superhero, it could be the exact, like Superman and Batman pretty much acted the exact same back then.
Yeah. And that's what I mean, the thing about Marvel Comics is you could relate to their characters. Whereas like DC heroes, there are all these grandiose, unattainable characters. Like Superman was fucking Superman. He could do anything. Batman was this rich billionaire. Wonder Woman's a Amazon goddess. You go through the Justice League. Yeah, Hal Jordan's this ace fighter pilot. I mean, you no one could relate to that, but Peter Parker was an awkward teenager.
Exactly.
Fantastic Four were a bunch of bickering siblings, pretty much. Arguing all the time.
Pretty much, but Johnny never, always arguing. Thing was always pissed off.
Yeah, and Reed Richards always, nerding out all the time and
ignoring his wife.
Yeah, Thing is just like, just shut up, let's go get him. It's clobber time.
Right. And that's another thing about it is that Stan Lee was writing real characters. He was the first comic book writer to make the character more interesting than the actual hero.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about the Fantastic Four, we never really call them Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. We call them by the real names because we relate to them, And he did that with them. He did that with Tony Stark. We call him Tony Stark before we call him Iron Man.
The alter ego was what made them interesting. The humanizing of these heroes,
right?
Because these heroes, they didn't want to be heroes. I mean, the Thing didn't want to be the Thing. He didn't want to look like that.
It was a curse to him, exactly.
Yeah. Spider-Man, he had all these problems before he got bit by the spider, and once he got those powers, his life even got more difficult.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And pretty much those early books, every book was him like, damn, how can I get rid of these powers so I can just go back to normal? Because this shit is making life even worse than what it was.
Yeah, X-Men, they all got these powers, but society hates them. Like these heroes were so complex that they weren't, like what DC is like, we're the good guys. There was that clear line of good and evil with DC, whereas there was this gray area with Marvel, which made them so much more, easier to identify with.
Right, and the thing about back then, like Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne and, all they were, like the actual alter ego of those characters, no one cared. They were throwaway. Yeah. Like, we really care about Superman and Batman. Clark Kent, who cares what he does in his spare time? Who cares he got to pay rent? That's not interesting to them. Yeah. But Peter Parker, on the other hand, it was interesting. You were more, concerned about that. It's almost like, damn, stop him. I don't want to give a fuck about he fighting, Sandman. Get back to where he's, arguing with Mary Jane and Harry and stuff.
Yeah,
get back to that part.
Yeah, I'm sitting there watching Spider-Man Homecoming, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? That chick wants you, man. What are you doing? Fuck the Vulture. Go back and get some, man.
Right. He's in high school trying to balance this stuff with him and his aunt. And I'm like, that's more interesting than him fighting supervillain. Same thing with Tony Stark. I mean, when we're watching those movies, the most boring part of the movie is when he's Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like we want to see Robert Downey Jr. just do some Robert Downey Jr. shit.
And
It's
that was the essence of Marvel is giving taking these super godlike beings and bringing them down to our level.
yeah. And it was like I said, it's another trope that, and you brought it up earlier, Eli. There's another trope that Stanley also had about the radiation thing. Stanley did go to the well on radiation a little bit too much. Almost every superhero he made back then was radiation. Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
Spider-Man, even the X-Men. Because basically what we're trying to say is that the X-Men in the early, like the first issue, he was trying to say like their parents were exposed to atomic energy or radiation or worked at a nuclear plant.
The Hulk.
The Hulk, right. So
Yeah.
he kept going to that. And because, I mean, we could say he went to the well in it, but at the same time, Stan Lee was trying to tell us something. Because in the 60s, nuclear, like, they was smack dab in the Cold War.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
nuclear threat was real. They
Yeah.
like, this shit could happen at any time. That's
Yeah,
why they
there
have
was,
all
like-
these bomb shelters and stuff, thinking it's going to protect us from nuclear bomb, stuff like that. It really wasn't. But, they kept building them thinking it was going to happen.
Yeah, science experiments going out of control, and creating these these mutants or super beings or whatever. That was a real threat. I mean, the fear of the atomic age, the bomb. I mean, the atomic bomb had just been invented.
Right.
we found the power to destroy our world. 20 times over, and it was scary. And so that was all these characters were like a metaphor to express that fear.
So are you trying to tell me Stan Lee was putting in social commentary?
SJW, fuck that shit.
I mean, that's what it sounds like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the angle he was going for. He was trying to say something with these characters. He wasn't just cranking out crap after crap after crap. He was trying to say something with these books, about, radiation and the threats of it and the dangers of, using science for war. They already saw what happened with Hiroshima. They're like, that shit could happen at any time.
And Stan Lee went to World War II.
Right.
He was in World War II. He went. He was there. He experienced war, and so he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah. And another thing, like, he made these characters so real. Like, let's take a look at Spider-Man for a second. Like I said, you know what? I'll save that for later on. I'm not gonna worry about that right now. We'll come back to it. Another thing that made Stan Lee separate comics and made them more realistic than, say, like what DC and Batman and Superman were doing. Like, Superman's from Metropolis. Batman's from Gotham. Where is Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Tony Stark and the Avengers? Where are they all from? They're from New York. New York City. Not a made-up New York City. They're in New York City. Doctor Strange. Like, he actually gave them addresses. Avengers Mansion is like on the outside of Central Park. You can
Yancey Street. Yeah.
Yancey Street. Doctor Strange is in Greenwich Village. Spider-Man stays in Queens.
Yeah.
This stuff is realistic. So
Daredevil's in Hell Kitchen. Yeah.
Daredevil's in Hell's Kitchen. It's 4 blocks, man. He protect the hell out those 4 blocks. Fantastic Four, they stay in Manhattan. The X-Men stay at where the X-Men stay? It's a real place. I can't remember the name of it. It's like, I'm not from New York, so I don't know. Whatever it's like in the upper, like, where the rich people stay.
I thought it was upstate New York somewhere. I thought it was like
somewhere upstate New York.
Somewhere upstate, like out of the city or whatever. I'm not sure. I'm not an X-Men fan, so. But I thought it was upstate New York somewhere.
It is somewhere like upstate
Buffalo
New York.
or something.
No. It's in New York, but it's like, I can't remember. It's like wherever the rich people are, that's where they are. But it's a real place. I know that much.
Out in like the Hamptons and Long Island.
Some shit. I don't know. All I know is that I've looked it up in a map before, and it was right there.
Okay.
So, because that's what Stanley did. He always put these places in real. Because he was like, the reason he did it, because he wasn't trying to like reinvent the real, or I have this cool idea. He was like, I don't feel like making up no shit. I don't feel like making up Metropolis and Gotham or whatever the fuck. I can look out my window and I can see Central Park, or I can see, Times Square. Just stick them shits over there. I know those areas.
Yeah.
So in those early stories when they were like going around and fighting, he's actually putting like street addresses in there and stuff. Oh, you go by the landmark of that, Radio City, Plaza, stuff like that, Apollo Theater, all this stuff is like in the comics. So I'm like, okay, Stan Lee. I mean, even though it was a throwaway thing for him, it changed comics because it made it more realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what made it so awesome, man. And then on top of it, just about the powers, like the powers he didn't just go nuts with the powers. Like for instance, like let's go back to Superman again. We keep naming the wrong things that they did with Superman that he was writing. Like Superman can just pull powers out his ass anytime he felt like it. Yeah. You know, he can shoot many midgets out of his hand if he felt like it. You know, he could sneeze away a galaxy just because he felt like it. He could fly because he felt like it. There was no explanation for any of this shit.
The super kiss that was that one movie where he kisses Lois Lane and she can't
she gets amnesia and shit. I'm like, is that what you gonna do with everybody? If Lex Luthor know you then you just gonna kiss him? Hook her up, Lex. You know. So that's what he did with the super. So in the Marvel universe, he actually gave everybody like limits. So they didn't have to worry about kryptonite, you know, to beat them. You could actually beat them. Like, I think with Human Torch or Johnny Storm, I think he could only, like, fly around for a little while. He would get exhausted if he did, like, he just got tired.
You could spray him with water and he'd fall.
Right, just that easy, you know.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Spider-Man, like, he was strong, but he could still get his ass kicked, you know.
And he'd run out of web fluid.
He'd run out of web fluid. Like, yeah. I think they actually said, I think Tom McFarlane said, like, Spider-Man is the first superhero to get his ass kicked. Like, it was like Vulture or Dr. Octopus, something like that. Like, you've never seen anything like that before, you know.
And that was like when Stan said that, when he proposed Spider-Man as a character to his boss. He's like, I want to make a teenage superhero. It's like, you can't have a teenager. They're sidekicks. They got Robin and, you know, Kid Flash. No, you got superheroes. They got to be adults. But he's like, Stan kept receiving all these letters from high school kids, and he's like, I gotta make a high school kid a superhero, and that's what was the idea for Spider-Man. But they thought it wasn't going to work, and look what.
Right. They didn't know what the idea was. They were like, but he's a kid, but you call him a Spider-Man? That doesn't make any sense. You know,
yeah. Like, and that's why they didn't give Spider-Man his first book. They gave okay, well, if you want to do that character, throw him into Amazing Fantasy or whatever. One of our
about to get canceled anyway. Right.
Yeah, like just throw him in that one. We'll give you a 10-page story, throw that shit in there, and then that was the catalyst right there.
Right.
Yeah.
And boom, they just had another hero. So it's just like that. It's just that they were cranking out so many characters at the time. I mean, just because the character wasn't popular at the time, it might have got popular later on, like Black Panther. You know, at the time it was a throwaway character. Stan was just cranking out Wakanda, Vibranium, whatever. And now we look at it as a $1.3 billion movie. And it's probably other characters like Iron Man's like that.
Yeah.
You know, he made Iron Man. Iron Man was sort of kind of popular. He liked Iron Man, but Iron Man didn't really take off. Fast forward and now later, he's pretty much the catalyst of the MCU.
Yeah.
You know, just because the DNA of that character is right there, you know. And it's always been the same. It's always been, you know, playboy, billionaire, Tony Stark, inventor, you know. And the funny thing about it, like the way he had Tony Stark in two roles. Like, he was in his own Iron Man comic. And then he was also in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic. yes, Stan Lee invented Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also, for all you fans out there, whatever. So and the thing is, the folks in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they just saw Tony Stark, they had no idea he was Iron Man. And Iron Man never appeared in those books. All he was just the guy that was just cranking out tech for him.
Yeah.
And so it was just pretty, and that's another thing he did. He invented the Marvel universe. He made a universe.
Yeah.
It wasn't this guy over here and that guy over there. Any guy that can pop up in any book at any time.
Yeah.
And whatever happened in that book will affect this book over here. And that was mind-blowing at the time. You know, now it's like you can't make a comic book universe and it don't connect. So much stuff he did, man. Now, I do want to address something else with Stan Lee, because I feel like you got some of those naysayers that's bringing up the bad shit that they think Stan Lee did, and I think we need to address that. I think we need to nip that in the bud right now.
My feed, it's been an awesome day of reading my feed on Facebook and seeing everybody, doing their tributes to Stan Lee. But there's always those those few that got to be that one guy.
That one guy, like, where? Just go away, man. Just don't do this shit right now.
The one guy that's got to piss in everybody's fucking cereal.
Like, you're fun at parties.
Yeah,
You
yeah, oh yeah, it's being oh, you're so edgy.
because you got that one unpopular opinion from everybody else.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so let's address it now. For those that don't know, like I said, Stan has been accused for years, decades, whatever. They say he's basically taking credit for stuff he didn't do, or you maybe have stole ideas, or maybe just stuck his name on some stuff, and basically saying he doesn't deserve all this attention and credit that he's gotten.
Hmm.
And I think, and I'm gonna just put this out here, I say that is bullshit. And I'm not just saying it because, like I said, today Stan has passed and I want to treat the man with respect, which I do. But I've always said that was bullshit because I already know people have been saying that shit for decades and years that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And I already knew when this day happened, those trolls and assholes were going to come out the woodworks and just start spewing bullshit that they know nothing about. Now, for one thing, Stan Lee has never said he invented the Marvel Universe by himself. That has never came out of his mouth. He has always gone out of his way to give credits to these other guys. Did these other guys have more impact on the universe than he did? That's another story for another day. But the point is, he gave them credit for that. He never said I created. He always said I co-created. He always
Yeah.
named, Jack Kirby and John Romita and Steve Steranko and Steve
Ditko.
Ditko.
Yeah.
All these guys and Don Heck. He always named these guys. He always make these guys bigger than what they are. If anything, he's the guy that made them celebrities. Because here's the
Pretty
thing about
much,
Stan
yeah.
Lee. And this is the biggest contribution out of all the characters, stuff like that. That's all cool, stuff like that. And all the stories he written, all that's all cool like that. The biggest thing Stan Lee has ever done for the comic industry is that he is the greatest salesman the industry has ever
Yes.
seen.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, that he his his enthusiasm for these books and for his stories, and he totally sold people on comics. He was a defender of the comics industry.
Right. Because of his personality, because of who
Yeah,
he was. He made people gravitate, like they looked at him. They were like, okay, what book is Stan? He became the first comic book celebrity.
yeah,
Because nobody knows who made Superman. Nobody knows who made. You can walk down the street right now and ask somebody who made Superman and Batman. They can't tell you. You probably know some comic book podcasts that don't know that shit.
hmm,
But ask somebody who made Spider Man, ask somebody who made X Men or Iron Man. They can tell you. Anybody, my grandma can tell you.
yeah,
And that's because Stan Lee was such a magnetic personality. He draw attention to the creators. So now, not only were you looking at Stan Lee, what book he's going, if you see a book you like, or you see an artist you like, you're gravitating to that book. And on top of that, he's the one that gave them like fancy names and gave like Jack the King Kirby. Stan Lee gave
yeah,
him that name.
yeah. I mean, I was reading I was reading Fantastic Four today, and the credits, written. Of course, he toot his own horn as well, but
Stan the man.
yeah,
Right.
written in the masterful manner of Stan Lee, illustrated in the magnificent mode of Jack Kirby, inked by the majestic mood of Joe Sinnott or whatever. He had like that. That was the credits. He just believed so much in these stories and the creators behind them that he like everything about it was just all about grabbing your attention and look how great this shit is. And that was all him. That was him. He was writing this shit.
Right.
You know.
And you can
So
say that he had no input on stuff. Bullshit. Go back and read a Jack Kirby book with just him by himself. Go read some of that New Gods bullshit. Everybody want to say right. And, I'm gonna put it out there. I'm gonna just say it. Everybody want, oh, New Gods the classic. New Gods is like the most boringest shit you can ever read. That shit is like hard to fucking read, man.
I was just getting into somebody with that today.
Right.
I said, Star Wars is better than New Gods. I don't give a fuck.
Because that shit is hard to read, man.
Yeah.
It's tough. But like when Stan writes a book, you can tell the difference because characters actually have personality. Jack Kirby didn't put personalities in the shit. He wrote the book like those old DC books were. Because that's where he came from. But Stan Lee actually came in, gave guys different personalities, used slang. They actually used humor. He was the first guy to put humor in comic books.
Yeah.
Nobody joked around these books.
Yeah, fucking Stretcho, what's his name? Ben Grimm's calling Reed Richards Stretcho. And,
right, Matchstick, you know,
okay, Chrome Dome. And
Webhead and
yeah,
Shellhead.
yeah. Fucking, that was all him. I mean, his soapbox, Stan's soapbox.
Stan's soapbox. That was a game changer.
Yeah.
Because it got, not only he got a chance to like say the stuff that he wanted to say, and a lot of stuff was like super political, super topical, you know, super controversial, but that's what he felt at the time. But he can also, with those letter pages, interact with the audience, interact with readers sending them letters.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing about DC. DC didn't give a fuck what the fans thought. Like, the fans send them something, well, why in issue such and such, this happened? Fuck off. Who cares? They move on. But Stan, on the other hand, will be like, he would actually try to give them an explanation. Or he wouldn't even give an explanation. He'd tell you, I tell you what, y'all give me an explanation. And if you give me an explanation, I will give you a no prize. Yeah. Nobody knew what the fuck a no prize was, but they did the shit anyway. And he was saying, I will give you a no prize. So now I started to realize that, okay, Stan was actually like trolling people.
Yeah. You know? And he gave his story. Not only did he create these characters, but he acted like every story that was written, you had to read it. It was the greatest tale ever told. Don't miss next month's perilous, pageantry of perfection in issue number whatever of Fanta.
Right. It's all on the cover, all on the splash page, on the last page. Yeah.
It's like he made it like, damn, well, I better not miss that shit.
Right. I'm so glad we have like digital now. I can just flip the page, just go to the next part of Marvel Unlimited. That shit was torture, back in the 60s, the next month. Like, well, I gotta read this shit.
Yeah. The greatest of the great, like,
yeah. It's not like they do now where they crank out a book every week and you don't give a shit,
Yeah. Yeah, he was just he believed so much in what he was doing and these characters and these stories he was creating that he did his best to sell it, and he did. I mean,
and he sold himself with it also. He was a master salesman. It's like in sales, you always sell the company, you sell the product, you sell yourself. He did all of that shit, and he was the first one to do it.
So whatever, rift that between him and Jack Kirby, I'm sure they had their disagreements, but
right. And keep in mind, we're not knocking Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby was he was an icon in his own right. We just saying Stan deserved credit also.
All hail the king. Yes, Jack Kirby. Yes, he. But whatever differences they had, it was still Stan putting the voice out there. Like, Jack Kirby's art was awesome, iconic, defining imagery of what we know as comics. But Stan put the voice in there. He put the character in there.
Plus, he's the one that came with the names of all these characters. Think about all these names that, like, the Kree, the Skrull, Dormammu. Like, this shit just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, and he just said, I said, I just come up with a sound name or a sound like Gru or Grut or Kaboomer or whatever.
Right.
Fin Fang Foom, like sound effects, and I just make them a name and
right.
And then I'd pass it to Kirby. That was like a quote. Yeah, then I'd pass it to Jack, and he'd do some shit.
Right, and he'd make the design for the character. And so, like, for instance, Groot. Everybody loves Groot. Groot is a Stan Lee and Jack Kirby creation.
Yeah.
He's the only member of the Guardians that is. Because the thing was, like I said, we were just talking about those monster comics, like in the 50s, stuff like that. That's what Groot was. Groot, the monster from Planet X. He came down and just started killing people.
Yeah.
And then they decided to, turn around, keep him, and throw him in the Guardians, and that's it. But yeah, he started way back then, and it was just like Groot is a Stan Lee name, and there's no wonder it sticks out.
Yeah, and then Kirby drew the shit, and he'd pass it to Kirby, and Kirby would put his stamp on it, and then
get these awesome designs.
the Marvel method, the writer working with the artist. That
right, they didn't do that over in DC,
Yeah. And that was the Marvel method. So, like Stan Lee, all the shit about, Stan Lee didn't give credit to artists. No, bullshit. The Marvel method is just that. The writer working with the artist.
And he came out and said, yes, the Marvel method, that's what it is. The artist makes the art, and then the writer goes back and just put it in there,
Yeah, I'm just writing the words. I mean, he even said with Ditko, he was like, fucking Ditko's art was so awesome. It's like he felt like he didn't have to write as much.
Right.
You know, he said he'd write all this text in word balloons, and then he'd get the fucking story from Ditko. It's like, damn, you're telling the story without words. He had to like use less writing. You
Right.
know,
Like I said, they don't even know what they were doing. It was cinematic.
yeah,
That's what they were doing even back then in the '60s. It was insane. So yeah. Now I do want to say one thing that I think, and keep in mind, all the stuff. Even though we're shitting on DC right now, that was back in the '60s. DC actually changed what they did. Reason they changed what they did because, like I said, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby wrote the blueprint. They wrote the blueprint for all the stuff. So all the artists that came and writers that came after that follow the same blueprint also. So what DC started doing was hiring Marvel artists. When they hired Marvel artists and Marvel writers like John Byrne and Frank Miller and all these guys like that, they brought that mentality and that formula over to DC.
yeah,
So DC started doing the same shit Marvel was doing. And that's when you start seeing, Superman and Batman started having different personalities, and Bruce Wayne started to be conflicted, and Superman, is he Clark Kent or is he Superman? Dual identities. They start having that complexity because of what Marvel did, because of what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was all a trickle down effect, and it's not just them. Y'all love Valiant, right?
Yeah.
Same shit. Oh, we really gonna get hate on that. This is the first Valiant fans. This is the first time I listen to this bullshit podcast and they shit.
Yeah, because like Harbingers is totally not an X-Men ripoff.
Right.
Oh,
Oh man, we just lost 3 viewers.
shout out to Get Valiant.
Right. Shout out to Eric.
They're doing they're doing good shit. I hear, man.
They really are, man. They put up big numbers. We're talking shit about it, but they put up numbers better than us every week.
Yeah, man. They're doing big shit over there. Get Valiant, man.
Yeah.
Get interviews with creators and shit. Like,
what's that Power Rangers guy? Jason Frank? The Green Ranger?
oh yeah.
Yeah, he does like the intro or some shit. I don't know what the fuck they got going on over there. So, yeah, but that's also we got. But like I said, I do want to say one thing that Stan did have an issue with in his writing, and it's a big deal, and I think it actually trickled down negatively to other writers and artists at the time. Stan didn't know how to write women. Stan had it is what it is. It is what it is. It's the 60s. Stan was very progressive. Like I said, he did a lot for minorities back then with his writing, but as far as women, he didn't give a shit. Let's go down the list of some of the women he wrote. He wrote Fantastic Four, but they really like the Fantastic Three with the Invisible Woman getting kidnapped every other book.
Yeah.
And
Reed telling her to shut up all the time.
Right. They're ignoring her the whole time.
Quiet, you.
Right.
I'm thinking.
She goes invisible. The bad guys can see her anyway. You're like, what's the point?
Hey, okay, Sue, we need you now. Put up your force field thingy while I do some shit.
Right.
Basically, hold my coat.
Right. That's all she was good for. The X-Men. Jean Grey was fucking useless in those early books, man. All she could do was lift a book. That was it. She wasn't Phoenix or, Firebird and no shit like that. She could lift a book, and that was it. So when they went fighting Magneto and shit like that, she disappeared. She was nowhere around. She was just like, I'll go wait over here while you guys get your ass whooped and stuff like that. So all those characters didn't get fixed until she left. Wasp and Avengers. What the fuck can Wasp do? Fly around. That's it. And go smaller than Ant-Man. Like, we got an Ant-Man. We don't need another one. And so
what's Ben's Grimm's old lady?
The blind one?
Yeah, what the fuck's her name?
Yeah,
anyway, she sucks.
Right.
Fuck that bitch.
Right. And like I said, we can keep going down the list. Stan Lee didn't know how to write women. And I think it gave a negative effect to other comic artists. We're like, well, Stan Lee is this legend. He does all this stuff. He didn't give a shit about women. Why should we? So then you read, and then, okay, did you, on the Comic Book Bullies Facebook page, Eli, did you see the Green Lantern post I made?
I don't think so.
It was on our page. It actually got some hits and it pissed people off. Anyway, it was doing Halloween, and some people are going to get this. Okay, it was a picture of, you should wear this for Halloween. And this picture of Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern from the 90s, and a refrigerator. And everybody like, oh, that's fucked
Oh,
up.
oh, I did see that. Yes,
Right.
I did.
Now, for those that don't understand what that means, because some people that didn't catch it, some people that flew right over their head, like, I don't get it. What? I don't read Greenland. I don't know what it is. So basically, what happened in the '90s when Kyle Rayner became the Green Lantern, he got into a fight with some bad guy named Major Force. Major Force found out who he was, found out where he lived, found his girlfriend, killed his girlfriend, broke her into like a whole bunch of pieces, and stuck her in the refrigerator. So when Kyle Rayner came home, he found his girlfriend dead in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
It was so fucked up that Gail Simone made a website called Women in the Refrigerator.
Yeah, and that's a trope now. That's like
Right.
the
Right.
women in the refrigerator trope.
Right. So now you see stuff and like that. If you see some fucked up shit like that, you go, oh, you're fridging. You're women in the refrigerator. You can't do that. So now comic artists are kind of like, tiptoeing to make sure they don't, fall into that trope also.
Okay, yeah, the male character that has to go after the bad guy because his girlfriend was
died,
killed.
right.
Yeah.
So, which was also a story because they pretty much, like I said, we can go back to Spider-Man when Gwen Stacy died.
Yeah.
Because nobody expected at the time, nobody expected a girlfriend to die. They always expected hero to save, damsel stress like this. When she died, they actually like turned a dark corner to the, the Silver Age ended. Now we're in the modern age. And pretty much after that, every girlfriend just got killed, stabbed, raped, whatever. Doesn't matter. Daredevil probably had dead girlfriend after dead girlfriend after dead girlfriend. No one cared.
Yeah, they killed Elektra. Yeah.
And she kept coming back and they killed her again. Batgirl got shot. We think Joker raped her. We don't know. Some people think he did. Some people think he didn't. I might have made that shit up. I don't know. Either way, happened the story. Watchmen, all kind of fucked up shit in there. And it just kept going on and on and on. And you can kind of blame Stan for that because he didn't give a shit. So why should they give a shit? I'm not trying to blame Stan for everything, but that's what it is. So
someone's gonna, use that your talking point and run with it.
Probably will.
Fuck Stan Lee. He hated women.
Oh shit.
Even though he was married to the same woman for like fucking 100 years.
Exactly. Loved her. So
yeah, like high school. No, sweet. They were they met right out of the war. Right, he was young, in his 20s.
Yeah.
When he met her, and then they, for life, shit.
Yeah, and that's another thing about it. Like people want to say that Stan Lee, was stealing money from these guys like that. He was not. Actually, Stan Lee was broke.
Yeah.
At the time,
he tried to sue. He try to sue Marvel about 10, 12 years ago or something
like that. Yeah, before. Yeah, he was trying to
before the MCU got started.
Before the MCU got started, Stan Lee was trying to. He wasn't getting paid either. He was getting fucked over just like Kirby and all these other guys were.
Yeah.
He didn't start getting paid till the cameos.
Yeah, which is why he started doing that.
That's why he started doing them. You're like, oh, cameos pay me more than actually writing these damn comics. So he never wrote a comic again after that shit.
Yeah.
Like, just stick me in a movie. That's when Stan Lee started getting paid. When Avengers started hitting 1.5 billion and he was in a movie, making residuals and stuff. That's what it is. He got paid way more than that shit than making Spider-Man. That's where he made his money, so that's when he started getting paid. But until then, he got fucked over just like everybody else did. That's the comic industry for you. So don't try to put Stan Lee in this boat with Bob Kane, how he did Bill Finger, or how DC fucked over Siegel and Schuster.
Siegel, yeah.
Right.
Oh,
I know
shit.
some of you don't know who the fuck they are, so I'm not even going to explain it. Google them. Shit. But those guys got fucked over. You know, Stan, don't put Stan in that group. Are we caught up? I think we all caught up. I think we pretty much ran through everything for the most part. But what we can do now, so we ran through the history and back. So now we can talk about like present day Stan and impact of what we think of Stan, stuff like that. So Eli, we're gonna go back and forth like top 5 Stan Lee characters that he co-created.
Okay.
Now, for you people out there that don't know, that doesn't include Deadpool. Stop fucking talking about Deadpool. He had nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
Okay. So, actually, I don't even know my list, Eli, so I'm going to let you go first. I'm just making it up as on the fly.
Yeah, I started listing names, and I got some honorable mentions just because, but I'll go, my number 5 spot, I got Daredevil.
Okay.
Now Daredevil, I didn't come into Daredevil till later on, but I was really into the Punisher. I was really into like Ghost Rider and just that street level vigilante stories that were going on in the Marvel universe. I was really into that shit, and that started with Daredevil. With the Kingpin and Punisher started out as a villain of Spider-Man, but then Frank Miller brought back the Punisher as a Daredevil villain and all that.
Right,
so,
darker, grittier, yeah.
Yeah. So I like all that street level crime shit that the Marvel was doing, and that was from Daredevil. And again, he took a blind guy, a dude who was blind, and included and that's the thing about when we talk about like what the heroes and the Thing and Bruce Banner and Peter Parker being awkward. He took these sort of these outcasts and made them important, included them in the world. You had a blind guy who's someone who's handicapped and turned him into this awesome character.
He won awards for that. Stan Lee won awards for that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that was like the biggest message that Stan Lee had is like no matter what you look like, where you were from, X-Men is a perfect allegory for being an outcast or whatever, marginalized group you were a part of. You were still special, that you could still contribute to the world. And that was one of the most important things about Stan Lee's stories. So yeah, I mean, Daredevil's a perfect reflection. A blind guy, a guy who's handicapped with a disability who could, kick mad ass.
Right, that was a superhero.
Yeah, yeah.
And honestly, man, that's inspirational.
Yeah, it is.
You can have a disability but still be just as good as everybody else. Even though Daredevil has to work harder to be what he has to be, but he can still be at that level. Yeah, and that you can, no matter who you are, what you look like, where you're from, you can still find, strength within yourself. That in the end, the power comes from within. It's just, you might have all these cool abilities, but it's you yourself and what the choices you make and how, which determines on how these powers are used, and and determines who you are as a character. So that was always inspirational, and it wasn't like just that cookie, like you said, the DC good versus evil. No, even the villains were very fleshed out, where you could relate to the villain. They had a motivation where you understand where they're coming from. So. Yep. So okay, so number 5, I'm gonna give him Magneto. Okay. Like I said, I never said we had to just name heroes. Yeah. You can name other, because at the same time, Magneto is a complex character. Yes, he's a villain, but in his mind, he thinks everything he's doing is right. And plus, he's just got a cool ass power. Yeah. I mean, I know we want to talk about all this philosophical theme bullshit, but you just got some cool ass fucking powers, man. Wolverine comes to him and he's just like, "Get the fuck out of here, Wolverine. Get the fuck out of here, Colossus. The fuck you gonna do?" It's just some awesome shit, man. So visually, he's just an awesome character when you just see him floating above everybody and shit like that. You just know, because I've seen some comic books and I've read them X-Men comic where Magneto just beats the fuck out of the X-Men by himself. Ripped out the adamantium off of Wolverine and shit. Right. So yeah. And like I said, as far as thematically, yes, he registers thematically also, because like I said, he was in the Holocaust. He's one of the very few Jewish characters that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby allowed to be Jewish in the comics. So yes, he's from the Holocaust. He's seen evil. He's seen this shit before. He's living through it again, and he's basically seeing the same patterns that obliterate his people about to happen again. He's like, no, this shit's not going to happen. So yes, we call him a terrorist, but in his mind, he's a hero. Yeah. Which goes to what I'm saying of what Marvel, all those Marvel characters, they all had these motivations where you could relate to them, where you understand where they're coming from. Yeah, Magneto, from a certain point of view, he's really not a bad guy when you talk about the persecution against the mutants and what was going on.
But yeah, once he does some asshole shit, yeah, he
I mean,
always
he is a terrorist at the end of the day. I mean,
there is every time there's you relate to the villain until he crosses that line and becomes the villain.
Right.
But their motivations always come from a place where you understand, like, wow, I see what you're saying. I agree. You actually agree with the bad guy a lot of times in the Marvel universe.
I mean, think about it this way. In the X-Men, they always go to the future, right? They always got these future adventures. In every single future event they have, they're all fucked up. They're all in chains, all dead, all executed. Isn't it the same shit Magneto's saying, I'm trying not to, try not to go?
See what they're going to do to us? Yeah.
Right. So basically, every single future they went to is exactly what Magneto said is going to happen if you motherfuckers don't listen to me.
Yeah.
That's why they had that sign, Magneto was right. Because technically he is. They've even seen it. I mean, if I went to the future and saw that shit, like, oh, damn, we all got fucked up. I'm joining Magneto. I'm like, fuck you, Professor X.
Yeah. He's probably, I mean, like I said, I was never a big X-Men fan, but he was, I would say my favorite.
Right. Okay, so I'll let you go. You can come with number 4.
My number 4, I got Galactus.
Ooh, good one. Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like I started going through like the characters. And I'm like, well, shit. I like probably the villains more than most
right. Because it's the same thing we just said. Like we just said, Magneto maybe not a villain. It's the same thing with Galactus.
Yeah, he's just trying to eat.
Yeah, I mean the thing is with Galactus, like the concept of good of evil is beyond him. I mean, it's like underneath him. It doesn't concern him.
Yeah, and it's just this big giant being that feeds planets. I mean, it's essentially God. Fantastic Four.
That's exactly what Stan Lee said. He was like, "Look, I mean, every Fantastic Four villain, they've been fighting guys they can beat. I want them to fight God.
Yeah,
that they can't beat one-on-one. That's what he made Galactus for.
Yeah, and it's like a total like metaphor for nature. Like Galactus is just this natural cosmic event,
right, that
just causes chaos. Which there's no logic behind it. It's just shit happens in the universe, and there's no they're not taking names or there's no out of spitefulness. It just shit just happens, and and stuff, negative things come from that. Chaos just happens.
A hurricane isn't evil.
Yeah, a tornado, an earthquake. Those aren't that. There's nobody. It's not punishment or anything. It's just shit just happening. Just nature. Nature, like the Taoism. Lao Tzu said, nature is not human-hearted.
Right.
A comet doesn't care. It doesn't care that there's life on a planet. It just comes and it hits, and it's going to hit wherever it hits. And that's what Galactus was. I'm just feeding on these planets. And it wasn't until Silver Surfer's like, dude, I got to have a conscience about this because, they got to Earth and there's all these, we've been feeding on all these worlds, but they were dead planets. There's life on this one. And that was where the whole confrontation started. But yeah, I mean, Galactus is basically a metaphor for God. or the nature the nature of the universe,
or some, depending on what you think, it may be the same thing. Nature, God, whatever, whatever your concept of God is. Damn, we just got deep. Okay. Number three.
Who's your number 4?
Did I say? I said
you didn't say your number 4.
Oh, I didn't say number. Okay, number 4. I'm glad you named it. Number 4, the Hulk.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you got him on your list somewhere too. But matter of fact, we're just saving for your list. I don't know you got him on there. So yeah, you can go ahead with number 3.
My number 3 is I got Dr. Doom.
He was up. It was like Magneto, Dr. Doom. The only reason I picked Magneto over Dr. Doom because Magneto at least been done right in the movies, and Dr. Doom they still fucked him up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what can I say? Dr. Doom, I think, is the quintessential supervillain of all time.
Right.
The guy in the mask trying to rule the world. I mean, Darth Vader, all your favorite villains have all stemmed from Dr. Doom.
Well, let me ask you this. Oh, Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
Darth Vader was inspired by Dr. Doom. George Lucas said so himself.
Yeah. The guy in the mask. I
The
mean,
guy
he
in the
almost
mask,
looks
yeah.
like him and shit.
Yeah, like Marvel could have sued if they wanted to, you know.
And just that, just the megalomaniac asshole who just wants to take over everything, who just wants everybody to bow down to him.
Okay, so
You
let me
know?
ask you this. Like I said, we just described two villains that may not be villains. Do you think Doctor Doom has an angle like that?
I don't know. I think he's pretty much an asshole, yeah. Just, he refers to himself in the first person. You will bow down to me, Victor Von.
Doom bows to no one, right?
Yeah. I think later on, and, especially in that second Secret Wars where he was God Doom and shit.
Oh, yeah,
I think
that was a fucking awesome story.
Yeah. There's a lot more complexity to his character, but at first he was just a vain, jealous asshole, so to speak,
And they have more fleshed out and more character to them, yeah. But yeah, the most I'm gonna spoil Secret Wars for you. The most awesome shit in there when God Doom saw Thanos. That shit was fucking. Thanos gonna show up to God Doom and he's gonna ask him, "Oh, you don't even know how to wield power. You kind of drained right now. You don't know how to wield power because I knew how to wield power when I had the Infinity Gauntlet. You're nothing like I have an Infinity Gauntlet." And Doom asks him, "But do you have Infinity Gauntlet now?" Like, no. Okay. And then ripped his fucking spine out. I'm like, what the fuck? And then threw that shit out the way and just walked off. I'm like, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. Shoot. Where am I? Number 3?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Oh, the Fantastic Four. All of them.
Okay.
You can't pick one. You got to pick all
Even
four.
Sue?
Even Sue. I'm going to put Sue in there also, even though she don't deserve to be in there. The reason I'm picking Fantastic Four because it was a game changer. Comic books changed overnight because, like I said, they had problems. They had financial problems. They had sibling rivalry. They argued with each other all the time. Hell, they the inspiration for the Incredibles.
Yeah.
I mean, the Incredibles was ripping off the Fantastic Four, and they said most of them got the same powers and shit.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, the thing about here's the thing. Now I know Gomer's gonna look crazy at me when I hear this because he knows I always shit on the Fantastic Four, every single episode, and I do. And the reason I shit on the Fantastic Four all the time is because, in my opinion, they've never been able to match the Stan and Jack run.
No.
Because the thing is, the Fantastic Four are a period piece. They only work in the 60s. They only work in the confines of the 60s because the stories are so zany, so out there. You can't do a Fantastic Four story how they need to do in this time. Jonathan Hickman, he's awesome and stuff like that, and he does some awesome books with it, but he doesn't take it to balls to the wall, next level, like, okay, these guys are high, like Stan and Jack did. For instance, they wrote a story where Stan and Jack were in the book where they wrote themselves, and they were writing a Fantastic Four comic. Dr. Doom walks through the fucking door and he says, "I'm tired of you writing me like a fucking villain. So write me as a good guy or I'm going to kill your ass right now." See, Hickman won't write a story like that, That's some wild shit. And they have all kind of crazy stories like that, where Stan and Jack can write the Fantastic Four and just do whatever the fuck they wanted to do with them. They didn't care about rules. They were just out there. You want to read some just good ass stories? Go back and read those old Fantastic Four stories. Like we talked about this before when they fought the Skrulls. Mm-hmm. One book, one issue. They met the Skrulls, fought the Skrulls. The Skrulls framed them, threw them in jail. They got out, fought the Skrulls again, hypnotized them, turned them into cows, fought an alien invasion, sent the Skrulls back to wherever the fuck they came from. And that was one issue. Next issue, they was on some other bullshit.
Yeah.
And so that's why I love, and honestly, that's out of all the Stan and Jack's work, the Fantastic Four stuff might have been their best stuff.
Yeah,
they made a bunch of stuff, but it might have been their best stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, that was your number 3.
That was my number 3. Yeah.
Okay, my number 2, Spider-Man.
What? Okay.
What can I say? Spider-Man.
Does whatever a spider can,
Yeah. I think we've already sucked his dick long enough, but yeah, I mean, he was just an awkward kid.
Yep.
Trying to juggle, all the shit, high school and his aunt and, trying to get a girlfriend, trying to hold down a job. And then he gets these powers and then he's got to fight crime. So it's just a guy who's constantly in over his head. and that just made for great drama and easy to relate to. So, and I can't. I mean, Spider-Man. One of my earliest memories of comics is Spider-Man. That being a little kid, knowing that there was that Spider-Man cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
There was the Electric Company Spider-Man.
With Morgan Freeman, yeah.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman as Dracula and shit. And nobody knows who you are. And there was the comic strips. That's what I remember. The newspapers. The Sunday funnies. There was a Spider-Man comic every Sunday. Even I think every day too. There was Spider-Man comic strips just in the newspaper.
Written by Stan Lee, actually.
Yeah, so it's like my earliest memories of comics have to do with Spider-Man, and then becoming a fan of Spider-Man because of the cartoons. Wanting to wear. I want a Spider-Man shirt. Can I get a Spider-Man shirt, Mom? What? Yeah. So just my earliest childhood memories are from Spider-Man. Before Star Wars, came along, and I was big into Batman too, but Spider-Man was part of that shit. And and at one point, I think at some point everybody was a fan of Spider-Man at one point in their lives.
Right. I mean, it's Spider-Man,
It's Spider-Man. So yeah, he's my number 2.
Okay, cool. My number 2, Black Panther.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I got to put Black Panther in. Now, I had to think about it. Do I want to put Black Panther in this? The reason I had to hesitate on that, because the Black Panther's best stories didn't come from Stan Lee. Christopher Priest, Reggie Hudlin, even Coates is starting to turn around and put like some good stuff that's like, making him a mainstream character. But at the same time, the foundation of the character came from Stan and Jack. Because you got to think about it, they were making a black character at the time, and they were making a black character in the height of civil rights movement. That's when they were making this character. He predates the Black Panther Party. Well, they both came out the same month or whatever in the same year, but let's just say they came around at the same time. And just the stuff they were doing with their character, like they didn't have him like he was poor or in the jungle like Tarzan, stuff like that. He was actually rich. They wrote him like that. He was back there. He was rich. He had money. He was from Wakanda, and they had technology that nobody else had. Back then in the 60s, in that first book where he had, they talked to one of the Wakandans, right? Like Phineas would talk Wakanda. They didn't know what Wakanda was. He had a cell phone in the 60s. Even Reed Rich was like, what the fuck? What the hell is that? And so they went there and they saw this crazy jungle, but at the same time they go underneath the jungle and they see this lavish city, and that's Wakanda. So they were trying to show that, this city. They talked about vibranium, how it was so expensive, and how he was getting his money, and it was empowering. Even reading that back then. So they took, the foundation of that character, and he just kind of fleshed it out from now to, 50 years later when they finally got the ball rolling. But yeah, I mean, and like I said, as a black man, that is empowering to see, because that's what these are. These are power fantasies. You read Superman, you read Batman, I want to be like that. So you see Black Panther, you're like, hey, that's empowering, and you see that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And he was smart too.
He was smart also. He was a genius. So yeah.
Yeah. So. Cool. That was your number 2?
Yep.
My number 1 is the Hulk.
Number 1? Okay. I knew Hulk was going to be on there somewhere. That's why I didn't go into detail.
Just because he's probably my, I might say my all-time favorite comic book character, maybe, I guess.
Yeah.
I followed his comics for a long time when I was a kid. I had I've told this story before on Geek Saz, but I used to be scared of the Hulk. When I was a little kid and the TV show would come on, and what's his name? What's his name? Bruce Bixby?
Well, on the show,
Bill Bixby.
Bill Bixby, yeah, Bill Bixby.
Bill Bixby. When his eyes would turn all fucking fucked up, that scared me.
I love that shit, man. I ran out of hell yeah.
I see that shit, I run out of the room.
Did I ever tell you that story? Whenever like the Hulk would come on TV and everything, I would just strip down them into my Fruit of the Looms. And then just run in front of my dad in front of the TV and just start flexing. Raw.
Oh, that shit scared me. I ran out of the room. that shit scared. I was a little timid kid when I was little, but when I found out that he was a comic book character, that's what was I found that fascinating. Like, wow, really? This thing that I'm scared of is actually a good guy? That concept,
Right.
that idea just blew me away. Like, wow, this guy, so you don't have to be scared of this guy. This is a monster, but a good monster.
But see, that's the thing. Let's go back to the comics where he originally came from. Remember, we just talked about like before superhero comics, monster comics sold everything.
Yeah.
That's what the Hulk was. It was like, okay, if this superhero shit don't pan out, at least we got a monster.
Yeah.
You know, to still sell comics. So that's what they were doing. They were just still making like a Frankenstein monster. That's it. But then when they actually decided to make the Avengers, they stuck him on the Avengers. They were like, okay, he's a monster, but he's a good guy, kind of.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool. And the funny thing about the Hulk, he was so you didn't know what the fuck to expect from him. He might team up with you. He might whoop your ass. You don't know. He might do it in the same story.
And he just wanted to be left alone.
Right.
Quit fucking with me, man.
Now, one thing I do want to say about Hulk, I hate it when, and this is before like the movie stuff like that, I hate it when the writers used to write him as a villain. Because that used to happen sometimes. Like, they just wrote him like a villain. He's trying to just destroy shit, and then the heroes have to team up to stop him. I hate that. Make him like an anti-hero where he can go either or be, conflicted. Things like that.
Like World War Hulk?
World War Hulk. Well, they try to make it seem like with the other guys were the villains and he was the hero or whatever, And I say this about Hulk, that my favorite run, the thing that made me a Hulk fan was the Peter David run. I know you're a fan, Eli. Did you read the Peter David run?
Which one was that now?
It was like in the 90s.
Probably not. No, I was. I was like shortly after he became gray. I stopped reading like Marvel and shit. Yeah, so I wasn't around for that the Maestro and all that stuff. I've read some of it since then, but like I when it first came out, I was reading fucked up shit.
Because honestly,
it was the 90s, man.
It was the 90s, yeah. I mean, you wanted to read some fucked up shit, but Peter David, honestly, he was writing the Hulk so cerebral, so psychological. It was one of the most mind-bending comics I ever read, and nobody ever talked about. Everybody talking about. Everybody keeps sucking Grant Morrison's dick about all the shit he did with Animal Man and Swamp Thing and stuff like that. The Hulk books he made were just as good, just as cerebral, just as well written. Because the stuff he was doing, like Hulk and Banner were in each other's mind, and they would talk to each other. And then Doc Samson, he had a therapist, and he was breaking it down like, dude, you have PTSD. You have I never heard of these terms before when he was saying in this book. I was like, what the fuck is that?
Isn't that where they brought his dad? Is that where they brought the thing with he was being abused by his dad and shit?
Right, he was abused by his dad, but he kept holding the emotions in. So what the Hulk is a representation of his 4-year-old angry side that he never let out, which is why the Hulk has no intelligence, because he's the intelligence of a 4-year-old. Because it's a representation of Banner. And then when like the representation of his father's in the back of his mind. And Hulk was scared of his father. Like Hulk was scared of his father.
Yeah, I mean that's what they're in the Immortal Hulk comics.
Right.
That's what they're touching up on all that shit. So
right, like I said, it's some deep shit. And I was like, damn, I never pictured Hulk. I just even thought he was just a monster, just fight shit and just move on to the next planet. They were just like actually going deep and cerebral and mental with them. I was like, okay, I never thought about Hulk this way. And they tried, and that's why I'm not too hard on the 03 movie, because they tried, but they missed the mark. Don't get me wrong, they missed the mark.
Oh, those fucking Hulk dogs, man.
Right, like I said, they completely missed the mark, but at least they tried. They looked at the Peter David run, like, let's try to do some of this shit, but
have him fly, jumping through the air with the choir singing, like he's all zen and shit.
Right, he's just staring at a lizard for no fucking reason for like 5 minutes.
The zen of the Hulk. It's like the zen of the Hulk. No, there's no zen in Hulk.
Because that's what we want in our Hulk movie, right?
It's like, what the fuck?
Right. And funny thing about the Hulk, you could almost say like he's the most, before when the MCU was getting started, he was the most famous character. Because I remember sitting in the theater when the Avengers first came out, like the trailer of another movie. And they was naming all these no-name heroes nobody knew. Nobody really knew Iron Man. They're like, okay, is that a robot guy? Okay. Captain America. Oh, that's a flag guy. Somebody saw Thor. Hey, He-Man. And then somebody saw the Hulk, and they were like, is that the Incredible Hulk? What the fuck is he doing in this movie?
Yeah.
Like, they had no idea why is he even here.
Yeah, I remember seeing Iron Man 3 with my dad. Like,
right.
He was like, Iron Man, who's Iron Man? I'm like, And this is by the time Iron Man 3 came out. He still didn't know who Iron Man was.
Right. Oh shit. Hold it. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
You went one. Okay, my one, Spider-Man.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, Spider-Man is, I think, hands down, the greatest character Marvel has. The greatest character Stan Lee has. Matter of fact, I think Amazing Fantasy 15 is the greatest comic I've ever read. And that shit was back in 1960, what, 3, 4, something like that? That story is awesome. Spider-Man is an awesome character. I feel like Stan Lee made, like, all the stuff we just named about Spider-Man, I felt like Spider-Man was trying to make the anti-Superman. Like, take Superman, take all the tropes you don't like about him, and make it Spider-Man. And that's what he was trying to do, and that's what he did. Like, Spider-Man, square-jawed, broad shoulders, make him a skinny, scrawny kid. You know, Superman never lose. He's invulnerable. Have him get his ass whooped. Clark Kent has no personality. Give it where his personality is more important than Spider-Man. He actually cares about both sides of it. He was, like I said, that's the thing we were talking about. Like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby kept writing these romance drama stuff like that. You can tell that stuff bled into Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And so because that's what they were doing. He was like writing both, and it was and like I said, the character, because the thing is, when I first saw Spider-Man, his face is covered. You don't know he's white. You don't know he's Latino or black or whatever. If you just look at a picture of Spider-Man and he's just swinging, he can be whatever you want him to be.
Yeah.
It's another part of the power fantasy. Like when you see him, he's just Spider-Man. He's not a white dude. He's not a kid. Spider-Man. You know, and that's why everybody's just, you know, when you see him, you just get happy. And I might be putting this up there because of that PS4 game.
Oh, yeah. I'm about to play that now.
I'm thinking, I don't know if that skewed my, like if we did this poll or list a month ago, would I put Spider-Man number one? But since I just played this game, and I just finished my project. Okay, so the Spider-Man PS4 game, right? For the last 2 weeks, I've been taking all the cutscenes and making them into one YouTube video.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a 3.5 long video.
Damn.
Yeah, it took me a while to do this. So I just got finished today, and I was like, yes, it's completed, you know. So, like I said, working on that, beating the game twice and like that, and it rekindled my love for Spider-Man. And I'm thinking like, man, this is, I see why I love Spider-Man growing up. Spider-Man got me into Marvel Comics. I saw Tom McFarlane, you know, drawing all those covers and stuff like that. I got to get this shit. Venom beating ass, Sinister Six. I got to get this shit. You know, and it got me, and I bought every single book that came out. It was Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Deadly Foes of Spider-Man. I bought all that shit. You know, if Spider-Man was on, I bought it. If he was in another book, just popped up, NFL Super Pro, get started Spider-Man. I'm buying that shit. You know, because Spider-Man is in it. And Marvel knew that shit. They knew if they stick Spider-Man in any book, you're going to buy it. You know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but that was my top 5. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Now, as far as cameos, we're not going to do a top 5. Just name your favorite cameo.
My favorite?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's got to be. I'm gonna do a toss-up between the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when he showed up in the with the Watchers.
You know, that's, in retrospect of that is so sad now.
It is.
Yeah.
But I remember just that moment. That was one of my favorite moments of that movie. Mm-hmm. Not only just seeing the Watchers, but then just seeing Stan Lee amongst them. It was just put a smile on my face.
And he's telling them stories and stuff. You know.
Yeah. And then I got to say Deadpool, where he's the DJ in the strip club. Okay,
yeah. I didn't think that was going to happen. No, the funny thing about it, who said that? I think Eric said that in our interview. He was saying, and he said, and next up, the stripper name is Chastity. And then TJ Miller says, I like to call her Irony. I didn't even catch that till Eric said that. But yeah, that was awesome. So, my favorite cameo. Now, my favorite MCU cameo is actually Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I just watched that.
You finally watched it?
I just watched it. Okay. I finally watched it the other day.
Okay, about time.
Was it with the car? He had the car shrinks or something?
The car shrinks or something.
Yeah.
And then he just says to himself, yeah, the 60s were fun, but now I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
That shit was funny. But actually, that's my favorite MCU cameo. But my favorite cameo he ever did, Mallrats.
I was about to say, Ma.
Yep.
Did it have to be the MCU, or could I have said the Big Bang Theory? No,
You didn't. He was in that. I forgot he was in that. Yeah.
he was. Yeah, but I didn't. But yeah, he was in
But you said
Mallrats.
Deadpool, so that's not MCU anyways. But yeah, like I said, if you guys haven't seen Mallrats, just go see Mallrats for. Wait, first off, Ben Affleck's in it. He's
Oh
the
yeah,
bomb in it.
as an asshole.
Yeah, as an asshole. Ben Affleck's Ben Affleck. And then, like I said, Stan Lee is like one of the best poignant cameos he's ever done.
Yeah,
I was like, man, that is awesome.
breaks down what he again legitimizes comic books.
Right.
You know.
I mean, Stan Lee, you could say he was the first person to turn comic books into an art form, into literature, stuff you have to read.
Yeah, and for Kevin Smith, Kevin Smith pretty much built his whole career on being a nerd and, trying, again, legitimizing the importance of comic books as a legitimate form of art, and Stan Lee showed up in that movie and basically said, yeah, this is the reason why comic books are relevant.
Right. And at the same time, when he was naming those characters in Mallrats, he was basically saying like how those characters represent him.
Yeah.
He was pouring himself into those characters. I was like, that's some deep shit.
Yeah.
So, all right. That being said, can we move on to the comic book section of the podcast?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because the thing is, like I said, we're going to do something different. Like I said, this is dedicated to Stan Lee. So what we're going to do is some Stan Lee comics. We're not going to do whatever the fuck came out, Justice League and whatever. We don't care. We're going to talk about classic Stan Lee books that we like.
There's some good books got released this week, but go listen to Comic Cats for that one.
Yeah, or This Week Geeks and Comics. They'll cover that shit. Whatever.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the first book I'm going to start off with is Amazing Fantasy 15. Like
Okay.
I said, it is single-handedly my favorite comic I've ever read. I don't care what anybody says. Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, whatever. This is the book because the thing is, for the 5 of you that don't know, Amazing Fantasy 15 is the first appearance of Spider-Man. Now, the thing is, when I read this book, I had no idea what Spider-Man was. I've seen the pictures. I've seen him swinging in Tarzan and on Spider-Man and Amazing Friends, but I had no idea who he was. I didn't know his name. I didn't know his background. I didn't know any of that stuff. So I'm just reading this character for the first time. So, like I said, the book starts off. He's in Midtown High. And like I said, I'm doing this all from memory. I read the book so much, I don't even have to, look at it back in. He's in Midtown High. He's getting, picked on by Flash Thompson, who beat it nerd. He's trying to, holler at a girl or whatever, kicks him away. He goes home, Aunt May, Uncle Ben is there. Aunt May is fixing wheat cakes, because wheat cakes is his favorite, but she don't fix too much because she thinks Scrawny Peter's going to get too fat, So the next day he goes to the science fair, bitten by a spider, blah, 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 gets spider powers, figures out his stuff. Okay, that's cool. So here's the thing, and this is what got me. So what is the first thing Peter Parker does when he finds out he gets powers?
Oh, he goes to try to make money.
He tries to make money. He doesn't go out saving people. He doesn't try to protect the good. And that's all of us what we want to do. We want to get power so we can go make money. We want to be an athlete. We want to do all this stuff, and that's what he does. He goes to a wrestling match and fights Crusher Hogan. I know a lot of you think it's Bonesaw McGraw. No. Bonesaw's ready. No, his name was Crusher Hogan in there originally. He whoops Crusher Hogan's ass, gets paid. He makes a bunch of other peers also. He's basically like a novelty act, and he just on TV all the time as Spider-Man. Never reveals himself, but he's just a Spider-Man the whole time. One day he's out, in a hallway counting his money, and a burglar robs the venue that he's at, walks right past him. You know the story. He just counting his money, sees him, gets a good look at him, doesn't care. He like, I don't give a fuck. I'm counting my money. Who cares what that guy does? Goes back home to his, house in Queens, and he goes in the house and he finds out that Uncle Ben has been murdered. He doesn't know he did it, but he thinking that the cops know who did it. And they said, we find out that the guy's holed up in this area right here in this warehouse, but we can't get to him because, it's a standoff, whatever. So Spider-Man turns into Spider-Man, goes there, finds out same the guy. It was the same guy that killed Uncle Ben that he let pass by in the hallway earlier. Understand it. When I read this the first time, that blew my fucking mind. I didn't know that shit was about to happen. I was like, oh shit, that's a plot twist. I was like, oh damn. So I was like, damn. So what he didn't do, he going ahead trying to chase money and don't worry about himself and not worried about other people. It cost him his uncle. And at the end of the book, the caption was, with great power comes great responsibility. Uncle Ben didn't say that. Stan Lee said that. Understand, Uncle Ben isn't real. So understand that when great power comes great responsibility is a Stan Lee quote. And if you ask me, it's one of the greatest literary quotes of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And it's in that book. So yeah, that's all I get. My rating, 6.5 out of 5. I'm gonna do a Get Valiant, you know. Shit. That's all I got. So.
Well, I read was it Fantastic Four numbers 48 to 50?
I feel like
which
shit
is
because I've never
basically
read this.
Yeah, which was basically the first appearance of Galactus, and the first appearance of Silver Surfer, and I'm getting deep now. The first appearance of the Punisher.
Wait,
no
what?
shit, no
Okay.
shit. The Punisher.
Is Punisher
no
gonna shoot
shit.
Galactus or something?
Punisher's first appearance. in it was number 50 or number 49. So basically, and I guess not the official first appearance, but the mention of the negative zone.
Okay.
So the number 48 starts out with it was finishing up whatever storyline was going on between the Inhumans. What's his name? Magnificent, or what's his name? Magnet. What's the guy? The
Maximus.
Black Bolt.
Maximus.
Maximus. So yeah, he's being an asshole and trying to take over the world and basically destroy the humans so the Inhumans can take over. Black Bolt and Medusa, they're all, teamed up with the Fantastic Four to help stop them. Maximus gets his hand on an Atmo gun, which does some fucked up shit. Basically creates a negative zone.
Okay.
The Fantastic Four pull a fast one and shove them all into the negative zone. And in the process, Johnny Storm's girlfriend gets trapped in there too. So they basically have to go back together. But that was just the ending of that story. And then, meanwhile, the Silver Surfer arrives on Earth, and all this fucked up shit. There's like these flames in the sky. All these weird asteroids are filling up the atmosphere. And they're like, what the fuck's going on? They find out the Watcher's like, hey, man, what's going on? Okay, well, the Silver Surfer's here, which means Galactus is just far behind. They're like, well, who the fuck is this guy? Oh, he's going to come and eat your planet. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to disguise this world. I'm trying to fill the atmosphere up with fire and asteroids so we can disguise this planet. But, too late. Silver Surfer's here and tells Galactus about it. Galactus shows up, starts fucking building his engine on top of the Baxter building. Fantastic Four try to beat the shit out of him, but he's just big giant god, and he just slaps the shit out of him. He's like, you guys are gnats. Okay, since you guys are like, Thing is trying to bust down his contraption, that world-ending Earth eating machine or whatever. Thing is there busting it up and shit and breaking it, and that's when Galactus says, okay, I got shit to do, and you, like ants, are fucking my shit up. So I'm going to call on the Punisher to come down to deal with you guys.
Frank Castle, let's go.
Nope. The Punisher is a robot in Galactus' ship above Earth.
Okay.
So this little green robot comes down that's called the Punisher. That's what he calls it.
You can say
Punisher.
You can say that, but in my mind, I'm thinking it's Frank Castle coming down.
It's Frank Castle inside a robot?
Yeah, in my mind, that's what I'm thinking.
Yes, Frank Castle inside a mech droid. Yeah.
Right.
So this robot called the Punisher comes down, and they fight. Finally, while that's going on, Silver Surfer meets Ben Grimm's blind old lady, who's like, she's like, you have such a compassionate voice, and blah 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 blah, and all this shit. And he tells her, oh, well, I'm the Herald of Galactus. We're coming here to eat your planet and all this shit. She's like, but there's all these people here. You can't blah blah blah. Basically, gives him a conscience.
Okay.
And Silver Surfer's like, okay, yeah, that ain't right. There's billions of lives here. We can't destroy this world just so he can eat. We can go find another planet. So then he goes to, hey, Galactus, don't eat this planet. There's people here. And he's like, fuck you, man. I gotta eat. And so then they fight.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm hungry. So they fight. While that's going on, these are epic tales told in one issue.
Right.
while that's going on, Human Torch, Johnny Storm, goes to like this alternate dimension way out in the middle of fucking space. Watcher guides him through like the infinity or whatever. He calls it the void of infinity or some shit to get this weapon that can destroy Galactus. So Johnny Storm goes through like, some Doctor Strange fucking Steranko fucking psychedelic shit. Goes through like the way to the edges of space to find this contraption, brings it back and gives it to Reed. I don't know why he didn't just do it, because when he got back, Johnny Storm was like, "Oh, I'm going insane because I just went on this crazy journey and shit." So he gives the contraption to
the Ultimate Nullifier.
That's what it is. The first appearance of that.
Yep.
The first appearance of the Ultimate Nullifier.
Like I said, I never read the book, but I know what that is. So yeah.
Yeah, and like Galactus is like, "What the fuck, man? Where'd you get that?" And he's like, "Well, Watcher's like, I guided him to find it to stop you." He's like, "You're not supposed to be, interfering." He said, "Yeah, but this planet has life, and I can't let you destroy this planet and all that shit." And Reed's like, "Okay, yeah, I'll destroy this whole galaxy if you don't get off our planet."
Right.
So then Galactus is like, "All right, fine, and I'll leave." And then he takes off. He ends up stripping Silver Surfer of his powers, and then takes off. And then the rest of the book is about Johnny Storm going to college and shit, and joining a football team and shit.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I give it a 4 out of 5 just because it's got it's got all the cool first appearances and stuff like that, and basically stuff that would go on to become classic Marvel, storytelling. It does. Like I said, it like the beginning of the first issue, you're wrapping up the arc of the last story, and then you get on to the regular arc, and then in the last issue, everything wraps up real quick, and then you spend the last 10 pages watching fucking Johnny Storm go to college and and shit like that.
Well, even though just before that, Galactus was trying to eat the planet, but yeah.
Yeah, So like I said, it's got not the official first. It's got the mention of the negative zone, but I guess the negative zone isn't officially appeared until Fantastic Four 51, which is This Man, This Monster, where the guy switches bodies with Ben Grimm and infiltrates the Baxter building. They end up throwing that guy he ends up fucking opening up the negative zone. I guess that's the first appearance, I guess, officially of the negative zone is 51. So
nice. Okay.
So just a lot of history. Like just these 3 books, there's a lot of history going on. Like just,
And really, you can read that whole Fantastic Four run, and you can know everything you need to know about the Marvel Universe.
Pretty much.
Like even today. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. Is that your last book? You got another one?
No, I'm good.
Okay. This is my last book. Books. Mm-hmm. Okay. The one I'm gonna do is, and this is actually Stan Lee said that this was his favorite book. Okay. Actually, Amazing Spider-Man number 96 through 98. Now, I'm gonna give you a disclaimer, because this is actually the first Marvel book, and DC book also, that weren't authorized by the Comics Code Authority. Back then, they had censorship that you couldn't do this, couldn't do that. Stan Lee said, we're going to do this anyway. And they said, okay, you're going to do it without our consent. And they put the book out anyway.
I heard about this one.
So, based on what happened with the book, Spider-Man is doing his old Spider-Man thing. He's swinging around, and he sees this black kid on top of a skyscraper, high as a fucking kite, zoned out of his head, and he's just dizzy, and he thinks he can fly. That's how high he is on whatever shit he's on right now. He jumps off the building, thinks he can fly. Spider-Man catches him, and he's like, "Man, what the hell is this guy on?" Obviously, he's on some like really bad drugs for him to do what he did, but he didn't have time because he's got to meet everybody at this Broadway play. Because Harry Osborn invited everybody out because he wants Norman, his dad, to meet his new girlfriend, Mary Jane Watson. And so Peter Parker shows up there also. He shows up late. He still shows up there. And when he shows up there, Mary Jane almost forgets that Harry's even in the room. She's looking at, "Hey, Peter, I haven't seen you in a while. I remember in high school used to call you Puny Parker, but they can't call you that now," like rubbing on him and stuff. You're like, "Wait, what the fuck?" you know. But while they doing that, and Mary Jane's like, we'll go in, but I gotta wait for my other friend that comes in named Randy. Randy is a black dude that comes in, and Randy was like, the reason I'm late because I just heard about this kid that jumped off a building because he was high on some shit, you know. And Norman Osborn like, well, I don't care about that dude. And Randy's trying to tell him, like, everybody keeps thinking that the drug problem is just in the black community. Now, this is not me saying it. This is Stan Lee saying it. It's like they think it's just related to the black community. No, it's bigger than the black community. Drugs can affect everybody. It can even affect you. And he looks directly at Norman Osborn. He's like, me? I don't have anything to do with drugs. You know, he says that while at nighttime he's taking super steroids to be the Green Goblin to go and attack people. But that's another story here nor there. So he tells him, I have nothing to do with that with drugs. That is a problem for poor people, for black people. I don't have a problem with that. He's like, yes, it's a problem with us because since the black people and, ethnic groups like us, we're the disenfranchised, they're going to come after us first. But they'll attack anybody, and it's a drug problem, need to be concerned with everybody. And Norman Osborn says, you have money and influence. You could be doing something about this, but you don't want to do anything about it because you think it's not your problem. You know, Peter kind of jumps in, stops him from arguing, stuff like that. And, they go into the, Broadway, stuff like that. And that's it, Cut to the next day. Harry tries to approach Mary Jane on, why were you all up on Peter like that? Don't you speak my girl, stuff like that. Mary Jane dumps him. And Harry gets depressed. He like, damn, my girlfriend just dumped me. But while he gets dumped, he's in college. This pusher comes to him. And the pusher comes to him, man. I saw the whole thing, man. I saw how.
Oh, you know what? I might have read this.
Like I said, it's a classic story. You probably heard
might have read this. Yeah, this is like fucking it sounded familiar.
Okay, I'm gonna keep
Harry,
going.
Right?
It's Harry. Yeah.
Harry.
Yeah. So the pusher comes to Harry. He's like, man, I saw the whole thing. I saw how your girl dumped you. That's brutal. I got something to take your mind off of it. Harry pays him. He slips him some pills. Harry's like, look, I'm gonna just do this one time because I gotta get my mind off Mary Jane because she just broke my heart, and I gotta get over this. So I'm gonna just do this one time, and that's it. But he's fucking pissed. So he comes back to his apartment, because him and Peter are roommates, stuff like that. And Peter's like, hey, what's going on here? He like, you're the reason she dumped me, pointing at Peter, stuff like that. Like, if it wasn't for you, because basically he's trying to blame, because Gwen Stacy's gone to, England, stuff like that. Mary Jane thinking, oh, he's single now. I can jump from Harry to Peter. He like, you're the reason that I lost my girl today. And Peter, and this is the coldest shit I've ever heard Spider-Man say. He's like, look, if you can't hang on to your girl, I'm not the one to blame. I'm like, oh shit. And Harry's like, oh, you Harry Big Nuts now. Okay, you can talk tough to me. Remember whose name is on the lease while you trying to talk big and bad. And Peter's like, you know what? I'm gonna go sleep somewhere else tonight. You having some issues. I'm gonna be back in the morning. Hopefully you'll have calmed down by then. So Peter leaves because he's like, if he stays there, he gonna knock the shit out of Harry. So he just leaves and go do his Spider-Man shit. He's out all night. Comes back in the morning. He thinking, okay, Harry's gonna be asleep, so I can just walk in the room and not have to worry about his bullshit. Walks to the room. Harry has OD'd on the pills. Passed out, foaming at the mouth, pills everywhere, all over the bed. He like, oh shit. So Peter, takes him to the hospital and stuff like that. Worried about what's going on, and he finds the pusher that sold Harry the drugs. And he's like, you're the one that did that. You're the one that sold my friend and almost killed my friend. And the pusher's like, oh, are you gonna snitch on me? You gonna rat me out to the police? And so he does his whistle, and 2 more goons come out of nowhere. He like, let's take care of this guy before he go tell everybody. So Peter kicks the shit out of all of them. Not Spider-Man. Peter fucks these dudes up and tells them, if you ever do this shit again, I'm gonna make it even worse than it was last time. Doesn't even care if they know he's Spider-Man or not. He just beats the fuck out of them. Runs them off. So cut back to the Daily Bugle. And J. Jonah Jameson calls Robbie Robinson back into the office. He like, okay, this story you're trying to run with Harry Osborn. You do know that Norman is our biggest advertiser, right? If we run the story, we're going to lose our ad revenue. And Robbie's like, come on, Jameson, don't tell me you care about that stuff now. He like, I don't. But I need to know what kind of angle you're going to run. They're like, okay, the angle I'm going to run is that, and he said the same thing the other guy did before. Everybody thinks that drugs are a problem for the ghetto. A problem for the hood, a problem for the black community. But if I run this story with Harry Osborn in it, they show that he's rich and he's the son of a billionaire. He got cars and money and he can get any woman he wants, and he gets affected by drugs. Then the people will understand that drugs can affect anybody, not just the black community. They open their eyes to what's going on. And James looks back at him like, what you standing around for? Go write the story. You know, and that's how the story ends. I missed a whole bunch of other shit. Spider-Man fight a bunch of supervillains and shit, but I cut that shit. I just got to the main meat of the story, and it's pretty interesting what they were doing. It's like I said, it's a human drama, and I see that Stan Lee was affected by, he always want to put his social commentary on stuff, and he wanted to do it with the war on drugs also, and he wanted to tell it in comic book format, which most people were scared to do. So I
Now,
thought,
did this come out before or after that Green Arrow
Arrow.
and Green Arrow? Yeah.
I'm not sure. I want to say it's before because, like I said, they made a huge deal about the Comics Code Authority being on there. But like I said, the Green Arrow story, for those that don't know, Speedy was addicted to heroin. That was a huge story also. But I'm pretty sure that story came after, because I think this story was written in 1971. And the Green Arrow story, I'm not really sure when that came out. But yeah, Stan Lee saw a problem and he wanted to put his input on it, and he used it in comic book form to combat the problem. Now, some people.
So this.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I'm just saying, like you said, if you did a story like this today, some people would say he's SJW, he's pushing an agenda, he shouldn't put the comic books is not the place to tell a story like that. Well, why isn't it? It's a literary form. Why can't it be a place to tell a story like that?
Yeah.
No.
Now so Gwen Stacy is still alive, right?
She's still alive, but like I said, it's issue 98. She dies in issue 121, so the clock is ticking. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I do vaguely remember Harry being like depressed and strung out. I wonder if this is like the start of that, because that's what yeah.
Yeah, and he kind of went him back into rehab and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, crazy stuff. Like I said, this book, 5 out of 5, awesome story. I see why Stan Lee bypassed the Comics Code to write the story, because this story needed to be told. And it needed to be told in a comic book format, because who reads this shit? Kids, teenagers, people that could be peer pressure into drugs. So they're the main ones that need to be targeted for this stuff. So yeah, that's all I got. So shit, you don't have any more books, do you?
No, that's it. Those 3 Fantastic Four books were enough.
Yeah, and those 3 Spider-Man books I just did, that's enough. So yeah, if anybody is still listening to what we did, I want you to know that what we just did was that we mourned Stan Lee's death, but at the same time we celebrated his life. Because really, we just touched the iceberg of all the impact that he did on stuff. We can keep going and stuff like that, but I think we've done enough. And there's going to be a bunch of other podcasts that are going to do their own spin it also. But we basically wanted to celebrate this guy's life, this guy's legacy, everything he's done, his impact on us, his impact on you. And just, and a lot of you don't know, he's more than just the cameo guy.
Yeah.
Like, he has a bigger impact on fiction than that. He's going to be known as the greats. He's going to be known as Tolkien and Twain and all these other guys. He's gonna be in that.
Yeah.
In that
Shakespeare.
He's gonna be in that category.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, when the smoke clears. So that's all I got. Rest in peace, Stan Lee. Thank you for,
Yes, thank you, Stan.
Yeah, thank you. Just hell, enough said.
Yeah. Enough said. Yeah, no shit. Excelsior.
Excelsior. Yeah. That being said, this is Leroy.
This is Eli.
Yep. Enough said. Cut it off. I know we got a long one.
Oh yeah, we got it. Like when you